Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for coming to this particular edition of 90 Minutes in Africa. I want to thank you for joining us wherever you are, however you're watching. This is your favorite Pan-African show, 90 Minutes in Africa. Into this edition of the program, we are going to be taking a look at factors retarding the diaspora investment in the continent of Africa, with millions of sons and daughters of the soil out of the continent, working in various countries and occupying key positions of responsibility. They are concerned about developing their continent, but most of the time, based on reports and complaints we receive, they find it very difficult implementing their vision, because when most of them travel out of the continent of Africa, their dream is to go and learn what has been done to fast-track development in the West, with the intention of coming back home to build Africa. But it appears that most of the time, many of them face speed breaks and a Herculean task implementing their vision. And that is going to be our topic of discussion today: X-ray of factors retarding the investment of the diaspora in the continent of Africa. We have our guest already in the studio, Dr. Ndimancho-Emmanuel. Thank you so much, Dr. Ndimancho. Once more, Dr. Michael Ndimancho, thank you for coming to 90 Minutes in Africa once more.
It's a pleasure, Boh, and it's always a pleasure to be on 90 Minutes. Thanks for receiving me, and of course we are together and united with Africans to see how much and how far you can make this continent a living continent, a continent enviable, a continent for other destinations from Europe to Africa. This is our goal.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Ndimancho-Emmanuel, a regular consultant of 90 Minutes in Africa. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you very much for the renewed confidence, Boh Elvis. I greet my brother, my senior brother, Dr. Michael Ndimancho. In fact, when it concerns Africa, we are always very much elated and alerted to talk things out. We think that, like somebody said, those who ask questions are fools just for a minute, and those who do not ask questions at all remain fools forever. We have been asking questions about where Africa went wrong. We have been asking questions: why would our brothers in the diaspora not take the lump sums, the chunks of money that they are having back there in the diaspora, to come home and develop Africa? And of course, since we have been having certain discourse with them, and we have discovered that many of them have reasons, we choose to X-ray it today, and that can only be done on the program 90 Minutes in Africa.
Thank you, Ndiwum-Emmanuel. We're also going to be joined by Nuh Franklin, who is going to be joining us via Skype from China. He's an entrepreneur who is our guest today. Our technicians are still trying to see if we are going to have him today, as they're trying to fix one or two things for us to have him. 90 Minutes in Africa, My Media Prime. You can watch us on Canal Sat channel 309. You can also watch us on Emos, and you can also watch us on Swaycom and other satellite networks across Africa. We are relayed by other TV channels across the continent, and online you can watch us on YouTube, BT Media. You can also watch us too on Facebook, My Media Prime TV, and share to as many groups as possible to invite other sons and daughters of the soil to watch the program. I begin with you, Dr. Ndimancho-Emmanuel. I've been able to, Dr. Ndimancho-Michael, I've been able to list down some of the factors. We are going to make the program in such a way that we'll talk about the factors retarding. We identify the factors, and then discuss about them, and then in the second part, we are going to try to suggest solutions to the points that we have raised. Now, one of the factors that seems to be blocking the diaspora investment in the continent of Africa is dishonesty back home among friends, family members, and relatives. I want you to expatiate on that.
Mr. Boh, I also want to go the research way to be able to dissect a topic of this nature. Let me come to your question. Before that, let me try to give a background analysis to our topic of today, because we are talking about the diaspora. And it is very important to know who the diaspora is in the first place. I know the African Union defines the diaspora as a national migrant communities living in interaction among themselves and with their country of origin. That is the diaspora. And now, coming back to know who this diaspora and what they are and how did they come about, it is good to be able to distinguish three periods of the diaspora, the African diaspora in Europe and America. I will look at the first period, which is from the 16th century to the 19th century. And I call this the pre-colonial period. You know, during this period, the 16th to the 19th century, we had the issue of slave trade, the transatlantic slave trade, whereby Africans were kidnapped and taken to Europe and America for slavery and to work in the plantation and some of those things. These group of people also constituted the African diaspora, and you know, many of these people lost their roots. And if you see today, many of them are coming back to Africa to trace their roots. Many of them are coming through the DNA test and all whatnot to see where their roots are. And these people are those who identify outside themselves as African. Most of them identify themselves as African and not as people of particular country in Africa. And you see, many of them have been doing a lot in Africa. You find, in Cameroon, we have had a lot of those people who are coming back. So this is a group of the first African diasporas that we can talk about. Those who from the 16th to the 19th century who composed of slaves. And then we can
and to say that most of those who were composed of slaves, you're talking about especially maybe the Black Americans and others.
The Black Americans, of course, you have the Malcolm X, you have people like the descendants of Martin Luther King Jr. You have many of those people.
But many of them no longer seem to identify themselves as part of Africa.
That is true, but you have had many of them who are coming back to find their roots. I mean, we cannot talk about those people now. We are talking about the descendants of those slaves who are now trying to identify their roots in Africa, and through DNA tests, many of them have found roots. Even in Kenya and Cameroon, we have found many who have come. I remember many came with Eric Chinje to Cameroon, of course, and they are building one of the greatest monuments in Kribi. Those are the African diaspora from the 16th to the 19th century, whose descendants are coming back to find their roots in Africa. Now we can also be looking at the second part of the diaspora, who are Africans who migrated to Europe in search for better working conditions. And this was after independence. You know that after independence, many Africans became much more aware of what we call civilization. And after independence now, through the colonial master and whatsoever, they migrated to Europe for education and for greener pastures. Of course, during this period, many people saw enlightenment and they felt that they can make their lives in Europe. We have many of those people like that. And they have come back. Those educated people are, of course, coming back to enlighten Africa on many other issues. Now, we have the other set of people who we are talking about now. And I know that that's what their topic is referring to now, are people from the 1980s. People from the 1980s till present. Most Africans left and are still living their countries because of breakable state, wars, hopelessness, poverty, political persecution. These are the people we are talking about now. So you see that this set of diaspora have no plan. Most of them don't have any plan of coming back to their homeland, because most of them are political prisoners. Most of them are left because of wars. Most of them are first of all very angry with their behind. And coming back to your question, the reason, the hesitation why many who we are referring to, those from the 1980s to present, don't want to contribute to their home country is because of the circumstances that led them to leave their home countries. Many of them left and ran away from their home countries because of political crisis. Of course, many of constitute that. Now, and you now see that there are these diasporans who are either interacting with their home countries negatively or positively. Some of them want to invest back home, but majority of them are interacting negatively in that you find that because of the circumstances that pull them out of their countries, now they group themselves together in order to, to incriminate their home countries to the international communities.
But exactly what they are trying to do, we will not say that they are doing so negatively. I don't want us to baptize it that way, that they are doing it negatively. What they want to do, maybe if we talk to them, what they want to do is they want to ensure that there is change so that they can be able to build Africa. Because if there is no change, it will be useless for them to invest in the continent.
Well, that is what we can say, but I don't think that it is the best way, the way you see some of them going by this. You cannot bring change in your home country by tarnishing the image of your country in the front or in the face of the international community. That is not done.
No, but Dr. Ndimancho, it's because of the perception they have. You see, if you travel to Europe and you see that, okay, you're in Washington, every place is clean, everything is, you don't need to see someone somewhere to give you a particular document. You see, at one point in time, you are going to try to bring that change in your own community. I don't see that maybe as
there is a way of bringing change, Mr. Boh. I don't think, take the example of maybe your family, your father. You leave home and you run away. Perhaps because your father has done one or two things, that don't favor you. And when you get out to your friends, there is a way, to condemn your father. I don't think the best way to condemn your father is, to incite your friends, fathers, or your new home against your father. Because what I see, some of these diaspora doing now is like they want to incriminate or they want to incite the international community against their home country. You have had people like, let me give a certain example, people like Richard Bonner. And maybe you have heard about him. The one of the greatest bassists that we have in Africa. Competing in the world. Who is in the US now? What he does is, imagine that kind of person who holds his passport, the Cameroon passport, and tears it in the face of the international community to say that this is a shithole country. There is a way to condemn that.
Dr. Ndimancho, I am not trying to defend Bonner here. To tear a passport of a country is not a good act. It's not an honorable act. But you have to understand the background that led to Richard Bonner tearing the passport.
Very good.
Of course, based on the allegations that Richard Bonner raised, he was having a passport, and at one point his passport got expired, and then he had to get a new passport. And he discovered that because the former passport had lots of visas that had not been used, according to the allegations, someone else was moving around using the passport in Richard Bonner's name. And at one point in time, I'm not trying to defend Richard Bonner. We need to be fair.
Yes.
At one point in time, this Richard Bonner, according to what he said, someone called him up from a very high office in the Republic of Cameroon to give him a medal. And at one point, according to what Richard Bonner said, the person was telling him to give him money so that he can so that before he can be handed over the medal. How do you expect a musician of Richard Bonner's
status? And this is where the problem comes from.
Before being given a medal.
And this is where the problem comes from. Boh, the person who called Richard Bonner, was that person Cameroon? Was that person Cameroon as a moral country? There was somebody, an individual who did that.
But the person will surely represent the mindset.
What steps?
The person could represent the
mindset. See, anger cannot solve a problem. I think that Richard Bonner will have done it another way. And there's always another way to do it. Who did he report to? How did he come about it? And how did he go about this issue before, letting Cameroon be soiled in the eyes of the international? It is just like, I take example of your father again. Instead of you trying to main issues with your father, what you want to do is you want to shame your father, and then you say you have disowned your father. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. There is a way to go about these things. I'm saying this is the negative part of it. I know that our own home countries have their own, issues that we are going to talk about. But I'll still talk about the negative effect or negative issues that have led to these people doing the way or behave the way they are behaving to their native countries. And we are going to come to the way the native countries have maltreated them. And I'm going to also say that you realize that the countries, African countries, have been making it very difficult for these diaspora. And one of the things I will talk about is the issue of dual nationality, whereby you find these diasporans who have gone out and they feel that, okay, to make themselves comfortable, they have to abide by the rules and maybe get some resident permit, which can, nationality can permit them to work and invest by the national country. But when the time they want to invest, they say, okay, you have taken another nationality, you are no more the citizen of my country. Means that your own father has his own no. And that is where their home countries are making a mistake. And that mistake is understood. It is because they understand that these diasporans are people who are energetic, they are intelligent, and seeing these African countries are ruled by octogenarians, they do not want these diasporans to come back and compete with them because they cannot compete with them. Those are some of the negative things that we want to decry. And you also talk, about the administrative bottlenecks. that comes with diasporans coming to set business in Cameroon. I mean, even taxes, those are also here. We are being suffocated with taxes when you want to start a business. And that is why you find that some of these diasporans, they are angry with their past, they are angry with their home country. So it is like two things that we really need to balance, put on a balance and strike and say that this, I mean, the home country have erred in this perspective, and the diasporans, so they have their own share of this blame that we have to blame it, because we have to come together as a people.
Thank you, Dr. Michael Ndimancho. I was already calling Dr. Emmanuel Ndimancho. Thank you, Dr. Michael Ndimancho,
that's right.
For that methodology.
Yes,
you guys have your own approach in research. You guys have your own approach in research and academics. You have what we call the historical approach.
That is right.
Or the triangle, the pyramid approach. The pyramid approach, yes, where you start by identifying. But for us in journalism, we go straight. That is, we do the inverted pyramid. We start with the most important before we come to the historical.
That's right.
Why sometimes you might see that I just start directly with what is called. Yeah, right. Because for us in journalism, what we do is we are saying that, okay, we want to give the news. Imagine that somebody is watching the news, and I'm trying to say that today at 1 p.m. this is something terrible happened around Fengudron Bange, and then electricity goes off. But if I started with the information, by the time I'm narrating the other things, you happen at home, but the person has already.
Yes, I know the concept of the lead in journalism.
Exactly.
Who, what, where, when. You just want to get to the point of the idea. That's right. Yes.
Thank you, Dr. Ndimancho. Yes. Emmanuel, of course, time for you now to come in. I know this is a topic that you hold so dear to your heart. Factors X-ray. I mean, the word X-ray. That's why I want you guys to go very deep. X-ray of factors retarding diaspora investment in the continent of Africa. Ndimancho has already raised a number of them. I wanted to follow some points, but Ndimancho was very fast and talked about the details. Now, greener pastures. I want you to first of all focus on the concept of greener pastures. How green are pastures over there in the West and America compared to Africa?
Okay, how green are the pastures over there in the West and America compared to Africa? I want to think that even in this studio, if you choose to make it green, it will become green. But if you choose to make it here and the owner of this studio chases you out, you always see that greener pastures elsewhere. It is true that the greener pastures there, the green pastures there is greener than what we have back home. And this is because we have not been able as a people to use the natural resources that African continent has been endowed with to make a way for our own greener pastures. That is why you will discover that elsewhere they are making it greener than what we have here in the name of green pastures. I don't know if you're
I'm getting you.
Now, to look at it, Dr. Ndimancho already made a very good and clinical academic follow-up
diagnosis
as to what happened before these people at the period, the different periods that made these people to become diasporas today. You see, we have different sets of diaspora. We have the diasporas that actually left their home countries on the ticket of their home government to go for further studies, while the respective governments expected them to study and bring back the know-how that they had studied out to develop the country. We have the diaspora that left because of political persecutions. We have the diaspora that left simply because they wanted to go for what we call greener pastures, not on anybody's ticket. But while there, it gave them the opportunity to discover how things were done differently. And I must make this remark passively, that what chased the diasporas out of Africa is less than the love that the diaspora still hold for Africa today. Many people do not know. I would disagree with Doc where he said they don't have plans to come home. No, Doc, 90% of them have plans to come home. The people who do not have any plans to receive them are the home governments.
Because of inferiority complex?
No. That is where I joined Doc now. They are afraid that if they allow these people to come home with all the knowledge they have acquired, how things are being done in the world, in the Western world, how people are being administered, how the country is being managed, how the citizens are being managed. With all that knowledge, it will become a threat to these criminals in Africa who call themselves leaders. And let me also remind you that today, when Doc said most of them are just thinking about their home countries negatively, let me remind you, Doctor, that there is a frustration in a human being that defeats the fear of death. Most of these people, the frustration has reached a level where they are no longer afraid of death. Let me tell you that some of the diaspora, I take example of people like Nnamdi Kanu. He was once a patron. People like Ayabacho Lucas, Ebenezer Akwanga, Boh Elvis, all of them, that today we baptize them separatists. We baptize them terrorists. They were once patriotic African sons and daughters. But because of the frustration that they had back home, some of them had vowed never to come back. They are vowing never to come back, not that if they are given a good condition to come back, they will not come back. And it is, I think it is time for the African leadership class to think twice. Because this diaspora has what it takes to develop Africa. And Africa will never go anywhere without the presence of the diaspora. Now, if you fail to give them that opportunity to come home and develop, with this money that they have, they will use that same money that they have to destabilize your government back at home, and you'll never be in peace. So I think...
So that destabilization is an act of love for their homeland.
For sure. I want to tell you that if you have never fallen in love before, know that there is kind of love that is expressed through violence. Not because you want it to be violent. You may love a girl to the level that you don't even want him or her to talk with another man. So, and because you keep seeing her talking with the wrong persons, you can attack wrongly. I am not saying that the violence should be perpetrated. That is why I came up with a phrase that there is a degree of frustration.
So we see it as destabilization. They in the diaspora, of course, those that are involved in that, they see it as love.
They see it as love, yes. There are some who have struggled to go closer to their various counties. The country has not given them the opportunity. There are those who have struggled to take the risk to come back home. And the home governments have put an administration in such a way that, let me tell you, in December, I had a friend in the US who had to come here. She kept postponing, not because she wanted to, because each time she went to the Cameroon embassy in US, she was not given the opportunity for her documents to go through. And she kept crying. It took her 3 months before she finally came to Cameroon. That's just one example. Secondly, there's another one who wanted to establish a business in Cameroon. She entered in Cameroon. All what she brought in was held in Kribi. She had to make 4 months before those things finally left the Kribi seaport. And he had spent almost half the capital that he used to bring home those things in Cameroon. Those are some of the frustrations that makes them to decide to stay where they are and start doing what they are doing. We are thinking that they are not supposed to keep anger or to allow anger manage their emotions. But then, what if you try to give reason to your country? I want to come home because I want to develop my country. And you see the way the country is being run. Corruption, bribery, embezzlement every day. And then you have what it takes to come home and contribute your quota of development to your country. And you are being blocked. Boh, how will you feel? You will certainly feel frustrated.
Thank you so much, Emmanuel. Dr. Ndimancho, I'll get back to you. You raised the point shallowly. I want you to be able to bring back that point from an X-ray the point. You talked about dual citizenship, which has really been a topic of interest in the diaspora. As we discuss with those in the diaspora, they make us to understand that sometimes having another nationality is not because of hatred for your own nationality. It is because it gives you the possibility to do business and travel around the world For example, there are some passports like American passport, which gives you the ability to get visa upon arrival. And if you are a businessman over there or you're a diplomat, you might want to maybe get that particular passport, which is going to facilitate your ability to move around and do business, instead of having a passport that might require that you apply for a visa and stay for at least 3 months before you go to that particular country. So I want you to talk about dual nationality as a factor that discourages the diaspora investment in the continent of Africa.
Yeah, you know, when you go to Africa, especially in a country like Nigeria, the issue of remittance is a very great factor in Nigeria, because the kind of money that Nigerians in the diaspora send back to Nigeria during the past year, the figure is huge. And this figure goes a long way to help in the development of the country. And people are of the opinion that you cannot expect the diaspora to assist in the development of their country if you don't protect them where they are. Let me tell you, every diasporan who takes a citizenship of any country where they are, I think is for the good of their country of origin. And it has been a wish for these diasporans to be comfortable, and as they take care of their home countries. The issue of dual nationality has been an issue, a far cry. And we are surprised why our National Assembly keeps on being mute to that. We cannot talk about the diasporan community if we do not check about their plight. Now, let me tell you about some countries. There are some countries who have the Ministry of the Diaspora, the ministry in charge of the diaspora. And this has been a far cry in some of the countries in Africa. You see, there are countries like Bangladesh, Georgia, Israel, India, and so on that have the ministry in charge of the diaspora. And this has been very, very beneficial to them. These are countries that even allow for dual nationality, because they have understood how much money that diaspora brings back to the country. Now, the issue of dual nationality is an issue that is very complex. Complex, but an easy issue to solve. You will not expect me, for example, I'm living in the United States of America, and I have the dual nationality, and I have the citizenship of America. And then you tell me that by the mere fact that I hold the citizenship of the United States of America, I have given up my citizenship as a Cameroonian. And then at the same time, you are expecting me to invest in Cameroon. Who takes care of my investment? Is that not ridiculous? It is very, very ridiculous. Because I cannot be a citizenship of another country and then I am a personal non grata to you, but my money is worth something to you. You expect me to send money back home, to invest back home. I mean, to create companies back home. I mean, it doesn't make sense. And that is why it has been a far cry. I made mention of the fact that most of these people who are actually preventing the issue of dual nationality are egoistic octogenarians in Africa.
What about the point raised by government officials who say that it is an opportunity, dual nationality, stopping dual nationality is a way of protecting the wealth of a country, in the sense that if you allow all ministers in government to have dual nationality, then be sure that the state coffers are going to be empty in 1 week, because they are going to take the money and go with it abroad in the name of dual nationality, and they are going to escape.
Mr. Boh, you bear with me that that argument doesn't hold water. Because in effect, even though officially we don't see, we cannot officially, we can't say most of these people have dual nationality, but we know that unofficially, many of the government ministers, especially in Cameroon, hold dual nationality. Many of the people who post of directors and whatsoever in Cameroon have dual nationality unofficially. This is a fact. And you will not think that how much money is leaving this country, even though those who are not even having dual nationality. Do you know the amount of money that people who physical cash, I don't want to call names, you know, all those people have been intercepted in France and America and whatsoever, and they are taking off physical cash to pour in banks in Europe and in Swiss. So it is not an issue of dual nationality, of taking money in Cameroon and bringing out. Instead, I think that the interest more is that we should have money from when you have dual nationality. We think that business, Africa is a fast-growing continent whereby business is supposed to boom. You can better do business in Africa now. For those who are economically oriented, you can better do business in Africa than do business in Europe. Those who take cash from Africa to Europe, that cash is, I mean, the cash doesn't multiply. The cash is, the cash doesn't serve any big purpose. But those who bring cash from Europe to Africa, that cash become much more productive. So those who bring for that argument that, okay, if you have dual nationality, I don't think that's what you call capital flight. I don't think that even holds water, because even without dual nationality, we have a lot of money leaving Africa to Europe. So, but I think now it's time to get more.
Okay, Doctor, before I get to Professor Akumbom, Mark and Tony, what about upgrading our nationality? Because I would say that there are still some African countries, for example, a country maybe like Ghana and Rwanda, where citizens would sometimes find it very difficult picking up another nationality based maybe on the kind of advantages they have by belonging to that country. If there is good governance, if there are little or there are few instances of administrative bottlenecks, if there are few instances of a corruption chain within the government circles, they could say, okay, I'm going to maintain my nationality. What about us upgrading our nationality in Africa? What do you think about that?
Exactly, Mr. Boh, I was coming to that, and I was going to give a glaring example of a country like Libya. In Libya, before 2011, you could hardly find Libyans out of Libya. You could hardly find them in Europe. You could hardly find them in America. Why? Because they were living an Acadian life back in their country. They were living a life that they were favored by the amenities and all of those things. I mean, the advantages that they had in their home country. But look at Libya after 2011. You find that many of them are in Europe now. You find many Libyans now in other countries because of instability. And exactly as you said, I think that instead, people go out and take other nationalities because of the advantages on those nationalities. Why are many Africans going to Europe through the sea and through the oceans? Why are many Africans struggling to go to America and even forging documents to go to America? America at all cost. I mean, there's a title of a book, America at all cost. Why are Africans struggling to get to America at all cost? First, because of the advantages that they have there. And what are the advantages? You know that you are living in America, you have the advantage of maybe some kind of amenities that you enjoy. If you are doing a job, you know that that job is controlled. I mean, there is no employer who will just come and be useless or actually maltreat you as we do in Africa. You are paid for the job you do. As a lecturer, I do some online classes, even with students in Europe. And what you do is that you sit, maybe you are doing an online class, you are for 1 hour, 2 hours. If the student doesn't attend that class, the student is bound by the contract you sign with. They have to pay your money at the end of the month. What happens in Africa? You could go to a class and the student is not there. I mean, it is cancelled that you didn't get to that. So we need these kind of advantages. If you have these kind of advantages, teachers will not leave here to go to Europe or America and go and look for dual nationality. Doctors will not leave Africa and go to Europe, because look at the doctors. How much are doctors paid per month? Menial salary, catechist salaries. I mean, they will not leave here and get to Europe for double nationalities.
Yeah, just to say, for example, when I was taking a look at the paycheck of doctors, you discovered that maybe in the US, a doctor will earn about, depending on your specialty, yes, from $88 sometimes to $119 per hour. Per hour,
that's right.
And also, right. For example, if you discover that, for example, in a country in Africa, you find a doctor earning
250,000 francs.
That is how much in dollars?
That is something like $500 or something, or less. Yeah, $500.
Okay.
I mean, is that an amount for
a month?
For a doctor who has studied how many years?
That is something that a doctor in the United States earns per day.
Per day. He earns that per day.
So
I have colleagues in Europe who have a class a single day, and a single day they are paid 100-something thousand francs for a single day. You think that, I mean, if not for the love of the country, you are offered those kind of opportunities. Don't you say hey to your country? And the next day you reach there, I call Boh and say, how is your country doing? I don't want to refer to Cameroon as our country, but Boh, how is your country doing? So you think that this is some of the anger. This is the kind of it's day and night, and day and night. And who doesn't like good life? Who doesn't like to assure, I mean, a good continuity of good life for his family and his friends? That is it.
Thank you so much, Dr. Michael Ndimancho. Time for us to welcome Professor Akumbom Mark and Tony. I know that he's a regular face too on my Media Prime Hour, House of Commons and other programs. And don't forget that Professor Akumbom Anthony is a son of the soil, Pan-Africanist, right to the bone marrow. Professor, I want you to come in to talk about the corruption chain in government circles, administrative bottlenecks, and other blockages related to jealousy that somehow stop the diaspora from investing in Africa. Someone will work day and night, because those guys in the diaspora, they work. I mean, when you talk to them most of the time, don't mind about some of the pictures you see on social media. Most of the time, they just take 10 minutes out of their working time to attend a party, and then they have to rush to work. They work for years, gather money, they come to Africa, to some countries in Africa. They want to set up a company that could lead to the employment of at least 200 or 100 persons, and someone in a high office somewhere sits and say, oh, guy, for you to set up this office, I bet you must give me some money. What do you, how do you think this affects the diaspora investment in the continent of Africa?
Thank you very much, Boh, and I want to say good afternoon to all those watching 90 Minutes in Africa, and to my fellow panelists who were here ahead of me, and brother who just came in too. Responding to your question might take us back into where it started from. You see, one of the things we have to be able to understand is that the situation in which we find ourselves as a colonial people, in fact, let me put it clean, we are people that were colonized. In fact, we had been enslaved, we had been colonized. And the mindset in which we were empowered with is what determines the result which we are producing. And so, when you see an African sitting on top of a plum tree, he does not want another African to sit there. I will tell you this. Today, we have Africans who left Africa, went out to Europe for the sake of greener pastures, whom in one way or the other actually are the ones that are fending to feed their families back home, which implies that the money that they send back home supports the economy of different African nations. But it gets worse when these same individuals, after having struggled out there for a while, make that decision to come back home and invest. Then when they come, they meet some individuals who are seated in high offices in the nation, who choose to say, you will not do this except you do this for me. That you mention it as administrative bottlenecks. In Africa, it is but normal, like I said, using our colonial background, for individuals to feel like when you are seated up there, you have become the master. As long as they see themselves as the masters, anyone who is under is a slave to them. And so they want you to endure that slavery, which you yourself had already endured. I'll tell you this, you mentioned it, that most of those in the diaspora, they are working. They are working their asses out. I will be sincere in telling you that most of them, they work 18 hours in a day in order to be able to fund their bills, to be able to afford paying their taxes and all that. The only way out for them is to come back home and invest. But it's shocking how, after having enslaved yourself over there, looking for a means to be able to come empower your home country, when you come back, some individuals, administrators who think that they have become masters, decide to block you from actually investing. You see, that's an experience that a lot of us, we have gone through, where an individual comes with money. He comes, he sees, in fact, sees an area where he thinks he can best invest, and it will empower not just 10, 20 persons, but I think a company that can employ even 100 persons, which in one way or the other is a means to assist the government. Because when there is unemployment, there is actually a lot of constraint coming from the bottom. Individuals with a lot of anger, they can turn against even the government. But an individual comes with the salvific spirit of coming to save a nation. An individual says, you will not do it, except you do this. That is one of the spirits that we should be able to actually destroy in Africa. Yes, Mr. Boh, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I want to say, because what you are trying to say, I mean, as you are saying, some guys from the diaspora are writing to me to lay complaints, so many complaints related to these administrative bottlenecks. You get you see the case of someone, for instance, who buys land back home, and then at one point in time, someone just comes and says, oh, he sees a wonderful, beautiful building, and an administrative official comes up and says that you are supposed to bring down this building, and then you say, but who? He says, order from above. When you are supposed to buy the land, you went to maybe the town planning, they said everything was okay. He says, order from above, and no compensation. They say, no, we are not going to compensate you, because by the time you bought this land, we are not just going to compensate you. We don't feel it necessary to compensate you. How do you think this particular individual will still be interested to come back home and invest?
That's where there is a problem. And I want to say that most of the times, individuals who face this particular challenge are those who have double nationality. In fact, those who have taken a nationality of another nation. Because I will be sincere in telling you that if that individual on traveling does not take another nationality, he will not face this particular issue, because when he comes, they see him as a Cameroonian. Most of those who suffer the consequences of this bottleneck administrative witchcraft are individuals who actually left the country, then took another nationality. And so, am I saying that taking another nationality is a bad thing? No, it's not a bad thing. I think in Cameroon we should even encourage dual nationality, because it is a means to even empower our nation. I want to say this clear. As Pan-Africanists, most of the times we are forging to see how African nations can get to depend on their diaspora. And diaspora not only in the sense that those who left Cameroon and went. We should be looking at individuals who, for example, had been carried out of Africa and they went and remained maybe in fact, they became slaves, and finally they have become nationals of different countries in Europe. They are diaspora of Africa. Africans should open their doors for them to come empower Africa, because that is the means through which Africa can get its economic, should I say, empowerment and economic development. If we keep on thinking that they are the enemies, because might be they have an amount of money that can might be make a change in a nation, and you think they are a threat to you, because most of those who are actually blocking them from entering to invest, they are looking at them as threats, and as a result of that, they keep on pushing them from coming in. But I want to say they are not a threat to our emergence. If we are going to emerge, then we need the diaspora equally as the diaspora needs us here.
Thank you, Professor Akumbom, Mark Anthony, and now welcome Lucas Nji, one of us, the senior analyst who is here. Lucas Nji, I want you to talk about dishonesty back home among friends, dishonesty among family members and relatives, jealousy back home, and a different mindset back home are some of the factors that are retarding diaspora investment in Africa. We've seen it in the social media. Someone in the United States works 18 hours a day for 10 years, sending money to construct a villa or an upstory building, comes home and sees a thatched hut in the name of his investment back home. At one point in time, as a person who wants to talk about it, probably they will take him to a bar and then put some poison for the person to drink and die, so that the person should not talk about it. And then the mindset, I have worked with an African-American boss before, and I did not understand their mindset. They are focused on results. And if you don't deliver the results, you should be sacked. I mean, I had a problem because I was still young, working with my African-American boss. Would just call me and say, Boh, we need to fire those guys. And I'm like, no, you know we're in Africa. He said, no, we need to fire those guys. Boh, I'm talking about my money here. I don't want to mention the name. So I want you to focus on that. Dishonesty back home, dishonesty among friends and family members, jealousy, and a different mindset as speed breaks to diaspora investment in the continent of Africa.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure for me to be on the panel with Doctor. It's a pleasure, and every other panelist. We have a lot of reasons which we could advance for the reason why Africans are scared to come back home and invest. What you just mentioned is part of the reason. We have a whole lot of reasons. You have the IMF, you have the leaders in Africa, you have the crisis in Africa, you have bad faith from the same African leaders, you have bad faith from relatives, and many more. The purpose for which the IMF and the World Bank was set up, which sometimes a lot of persons tend to see them as gods, was basically to empower developing economies. And these developing economies, with Africa being at the center, because Africa was long realized to be the breadbasket of the world. So it was but obvious that the IMF was set to assist these people, but without the aim of causing these same areas to be economically dependent, as you may want to find in France or in the US. It is the reason why, if you look at the amount of money they give to Africa and the interest rate, it is way higher than what you see. The bad faith we are seeing in most cases where a brother sends a money or some monies to you to invest for him back at home, and at the end of the day, he or she doesn't turn out to have exactly what was presented on photos. I think it's because of a lot of issues that are happening on the ground. In most cases, some of these persons who send money do not even understand the tax system. One of the major problems in Cameroon, aside from the fact that I want to use Cameroon as a case study, we are talking about Africa, but I think it would be great to have a case study such that the viewers can understand and we should know exactly what is on the ground, is the aspect of not knowing our tax system. A lot of persons in Cameroon find pleasure to have a middleman to register their companies or to register their businesses. And when that happens, in most cases, you tend to pay more, especially within the tax system of the country, where if you want to rely on the back door or the window door, as many may want to put it, as a means through which you need to register your business, you have to pay more. As a matter of fact, today we are looking at the aspect of real estate, because this is the domain where you find most of the African diaspora who want to send money back at home. Real estate. It is really the sector, it is the sector that gives them that hope that they have a certain amount of money buried down. But what happens at the end of the day is, with all the knowledge they have why they are in Europe or the US, they tend to act as though they cannot reason. As a matter of fact, if you want to be an investor, like you said earlier, your boss did not just decide to sack or to fire those guys. Your boss was result-oriented person. He knows that when a certain amount of money is committed, there should be a follow-up. We have bad faith, no doubt. But I want to say that the reason why at the end of the day the project gets to fail is because we tend to work quite sentimental and we forget about principles of investment. In investing, you don't go based on relationship. If I want to invest and I need Ndiwum to be a part in it, I should follow the terms of investment, not that Ndiwum is a friend or a brother. And in most cases, those who are abroad, they tend to give these things to people on the basis of friendship, relationship, not on the basis of what it is. Because once you get somebody who is competence-oriented, like Professor Mark said, you will understand that this is the person and this is going to be the contract you are going to go into with that person. And, you know, even with contracts, for example, companies, when they send out contracts or when the contract is given, you have the monitoring and evaluation aspect, which is the backbone to ascertain that whatsoever had been committed or is being committed into that, some other person should be the one to tell us. So it does not suffice for me to give money to my brother to invest back at home, and I sit without having somebody to monitor that project and evaluate that project and report back to me how the project is unfolding. Once you fail to do that, you as an investor, you have failed.
In the investors back there in Europe and America, they're choosing people back home that they can be able to track. Because remember, we have lots of very competent 419 scammers.
Yes.
Who are very competent, and
Yeah.
at the end of the day, they could take your money and disappear.
Yes.
So at one point in time, they also have, you have to look for someone that you can track. You know where he is.
Good. It is the reason I am saying that there are certain terms of investment. When you want to invest, you need to take into consideration. You do not just get up because somebody presented to you a certain project on the social media or on the laptop, or maybe you could see these things and you think that person is well qualified for that. I think in most cases where we have these things, it is happening so because the investor has little or no time on that. First of all, they believe that because they have given their money, all you need to do is to go by what they want, which is very correct. However, they also have a responsibility. Like I said, the most important responsibility is that of the monitoring and evaluation personnel. Because this is the person, we are talking about monitoring. We are talking about the person who should be giving you day-to-day update of that particular project. And of course, your terms of contract or terms of agreement within that particular investment should not be based on bloodline. It should not be based on how you know that person. Rather, it should be based on what business is all about.
Before I leave you, Lucas, to get to Emmanuel Ndiwum, I want you to talk about the mindset.
Yeah.
Of course, you know there is a difference between 8 hours of work and 8 hours at work.
Yeah.
8 hours of work means that you are actually
committed, you are working, you are doing something.
You can be in the office
at
for 8
work,
hours,
you could sit without necessarily working. Yeah.
So that is
or effective work. Yeah.
Over there in the US and in Europe, they practice 8 hours of work.
Yeah.
Which means that if you close your eyes for 2 minutes,
You're
the computer has already slashed your salary.
Yeah, you're in trouble.
Here in Africa, most of the time people practice 8 hours at work. That is, you work for 20 minutes, you get to a bar, take a bottle of beer, relax, and then come back.
Yeah.
So it happens that those in Europe and those in America, they don't seem to understand that kind of mindset, that you are being paid for 8 hours of work, but you are not doing the 8 hours of work, but you want to get the salary of 8 hours of work. So they cannot understand. That's why most of the time they are very strict with the management of the companies they build back home. Which
of course it's the normal, it's something that should be. Remember, we are talking about what is retarding Africa's growth, economic growth. And you should not forget that you back at home who has this nonchalant attitude, you are contributing to the underdevelopment of Africa. And it should not be something that we should take it lightly. When we say 8 hours at work, we are saying that you should be doing what you are there to do. You are investing into time. You should be doing what you were contracted to do.
Right.
I cannot come here and we say we have 2 hours to discuss. And I sit, and when it's time for me to share on the topic of discussion, I have little or nothing to say about it. I will not be effective. So I want to believe that the major problem is that we have decided to operate like this. Don't forget that it is very common for you to hear somebody say, there is a time meant for black man, in quote, and there is a time meant for white man. For example, I came late and somebody would have said, no, that was the black man time he thought of, but I was basically trapped in traffic. That notwithstanding, if you were to go logically, then because I have to be here, I ought to have left the house a little earlier than the time I left. So if you look at these things, they contribute a lot in the development of a nation. So the problem here is not the number of hours you put. The problem is, are you willing to work according to what is set out to be? So we do not just have a factor retarding Africa's growth. We have a whole lot of factors.
Because there are still people who are home in the diaspora, and they are not even available physically. I mean, especially this was implemented during COVID-19. You have journalists that have home studios that were able to run their shows from their home, and you have other consultancies. You are making a WhatsApp call and he tells you, great guy, I'm supposed to work, and they are working from their home, and the work is still valid.
So we should, that is the mindset we are talking about. Now, like I said, we have a lot of reasons why Africa's growth cannot be the way they are. It will be my desire that why Africa cannot grow should have at least part 2 to part 4. Because at the end of the day, we cannot truly exhaust why Africa cannot grow within these hours that we have ahead of us. Yeah.
Thank you.
But like, I want to stop by saying that there are several reasons. You have the attitude of those back to manage the project. You have the attitude of the government. You have the attitude of the IMF and the World Bank. You have the attitude of the colonialists. You have the attitude of politicians. There are several factors, which if we want to break them down, for example, if you go to China, in order to encourage investment within particular zones in China, there are zones which are tax-free. For example, you could go to a place like Boya. Let me just borrow into the case of the Prime Ministerial Decree in 2019, I think, which it says that if you want to open or put up a small and medium-sized business or a company in the northwest and southwest and the far north of Cameroon, you have 2 years of not paying tax. And within this particular period, you are expected to give report whether your business is going to survive. This is to encourage that people should go back to these places and invest. But a good number of Cameroonians do not know about this. Now, like I said, if the person who wants to put up the business understands the tax system, because the major thing here is that the administrative bottleneck lies on the tax system. And I want you to know that in every advanced country, you have lobbyists. There is a team that lobbies for particular projects to come in. So if you want to have a project in Cameroon, let me borrow the case of Dangote. I think it should be a few months or so ago, we saw that Dangote was granted audience at the presidency. That was not for nothing. Dangote went to the presidency for several reasons that we could attempt. Dangote went to the presidencies to assure the state that he is willing to meet up with the demands. Dangote went to the presidency to assure the government that no matter what you want, I think I can satisfy your people. And these are things that
and also to send a warning message to those that might want to stand on his way.
Exactly. Like let us take into the same case. When Dangote came to Cameroon, for example, we observed that at the end of the day, a certain chief or certain chiefs felt like Dangote was stepping on their land. And he made known to them that where I am, I do not discuss with you. I discuss with the president. I discuss with the president.
Thank you.
So these are factors. If you want to be a real businessman, Mr. Boh, what investors, what those in the diaspora need to know is that to invest in a country, for example, we have lobbyists who are more than the Senate and the Congress of the United States at the door foot of every senator in the U.S. globally to lobby them to accept, these are multinationals, to lobby that they should accept that their businesses should operate in other parts of the world because they know that they have the power to decide. So when you want to be an investor, these are some of the things you need to know. If you do not know how to lobby, it's not going to work. If you say there is administrative bottleneck, which exists, I cannot deny, right? We have several factors, like I said. But what you need to know in such a case is that you need to identify what you need to do, because that is the mentality. There is no holy person in business. There is no holy person in business. Business has a principle. Business is not an area where when you want to get into it, you start thinking twice. A few days ago, we observed that the richest man in the world was denied. They had to put up a certain pill, a name in an economics which I learned it for my very first time, that poisonous pill, just to deter him from buying Twitter. But he understood what to do. He had to lobby, and finally it is in his hand. He has bought it at the end of the day. So these are all mentalities. We need to, it is different from bribery. Lobbying is different from bribery.
Thank you.
Though you may want to see it as though it's bribery, but it is permitted in business. It is the reason why the US that fights against corruption at the level of their Congress, when you go to lobby, lobbying has futures of you being able to explain to them. They should see how the community you're talking about is going to have what you are saying.
Thank you, Lucas Nji. Let us allow the other people to talk. We have messages that are coming in. Have your say. If you're just joining us, this is 90 Minutes in Africa. There is a number there on the screen which you can use to send us a message on WhatsApp or SMS, especially those in the diaspora who want to get your perspective about the difficulties you face. We're supposed to get one of us, Frankly Nuh, an entrepreneur based in the diaspora, but unfortunately we're unable to have him on the show today, but subsequently we hope we are going to have him. I read messages that are coming in. This message coming in from Afino, who says a nurse earns more money than a doctor in Cameroon. This other message, a nurse in the US earns more money than a doctor in Cameroon. This other message from Nongo Robinson, who says that, they were talking about the amount of money you guys mentioned, 250,000 Cameroon francs a year, I don't know, $500. They say that is not even money for a cleaner in Europe. Afino comes back to say a nurse's pay per day is more than a doctor's pay per month in Cameroon. Gospel truth. So a nurse in the United States earns per day, her salary or his salary per day is more than what a doctor, medical doctor earns per month in Cameroon. Kingdom Child, I don't know, the Kingdom Child says diasporas are the main source of most countries' development, and making things hard for them like high custom duties will keep the country underdeveloped. Ako Gerard, only at the airport, immigration officers at the Douala airport extort money from people coming in from abroad. Kumpita, no one in the Western world come late on a television show for become Emmanuel. Corrupt mindset and individuals. Kumpita comes back to say, press men and women, if you want Cameroon to change, you must say the truth, condemn the bad acts of the government. Cameroon journalists are always pampering the Cameroon government. That's coming in from Kumpita. So we also get this message coming in from Dr. Angoni Wesley, who is also in the diaspora, writing us this message. It is only in the diaspora, it is the diaspora, even those of Cameroonian and African American origins, who are building Ghana, Rwanda, and many countries who have opened their doors. And it will shock you that a huge amount of descendants of African American slaves are of Cameroonian origins, and they are moving and investing in Ghana, Rwanda, and other countries who open doors for African Americans. Ndiwum were coming out to talk about legalized corruption as a factor retarding the diaspora investment in the continent of Africa.
I like the way you put it. Legalized corruption. You see, corruption is one of the main factors that has discouraged our African diaspora brothers not to be able to come back home. Just imagine that some of them who had struggled in vain to write concours back in Africa, let me take the case of Cameroon. Some of them would have liked to be in Enow, Hughes, and said, ENS, and all the like. But since they did not have the money, they wrote and failed. Whereas
what a big blessing for them.
What a big blessing for them, of course. Who wrote and failed? Because they did not have the permanent and well-known 3 million, 3.5 million to give and go in. But elsewhere, out of Africa, they are making it big time. This money you are talking there is because they have the intellectual capacity to execute their functions in US, because there you are not paid for nothing. It means if they are earning this money, they are earning money for work well done, for a job well done. Now, just imagine that some of them who had actually studied abroad watch people home who are below their capacities. They are named governors. They don't even have the administrative ethics to face and talk with it, to mingle with the people. Some of them even go insulting people, the dogs. They know in diaspora that I have the skill to be more than a governor than this man. You have ministers in Africa whom some of them are even ex-convicts, criminals. And then you have our own African diaspora brothers who know that this man do not match my ability to manage the population. You have diaspora who have actually seen how in Africa we are still having hospitals that they operate people with their razor blades in Africa. And then they who are seated in Europe, America, they know that these are things, if we were given the opportunity to come back home, we will change the types of things. I mean, as humans, they are angry. Their spirit is overflow with anger because they have what it takes to do the right thing. But those who know nothing are put back home to do everything possible to damage the economy, damage the people. I mean, you have people who have doctorate degrees that never went to school, but have doctorate degrees in embezzlement, stealing. And you discover that even the money that the diaspora will be pumping into the African economy ends up being stifled by some of these criminals who are there with just specialized to take this money, embezzle it somewhere. And I ask the question, who cares Africa? Is it not time for the African leaders who have failed to deliver to open those doors to their sons and daughters who are back there in the diaspora to come in, invest and develop, and then even pardon some of them whom we know so well that they leave Africa, they go to Geneva, they go to Switzerland, they live in continental hotels there, but back home in their countries, they cannot build a 2-star hotel. It is damaging, Boh.
Thank you, Ndiwum. This message coming in from Gerard in the United Arab Emirates. Hello, 90 Minutes in Africa. Many people fail in business because they don't have a business plan to follow, and they believe that since they have money, they can put up an investment or a business anytime and it will work. Again, lack of follow-up is what is killing many people, even at the level of government projects. Now, Dr. Ndimancho, I don't want us to be those people who just come and criticize, and at the end, we don't give solutions. I want us to spend the remaining time to give solutions, to be also very snappy, so that every other person should have the opportunity to give suggestions on what we can do. Talking with our brothers and sisters there in the diaspora, I'm also discussing too with other black Americans, some of them running television channels over there. Talking with them, you discover that they have a soft spot in their heart for their continent. It is true that they have champagne, they have all kinds of drinks, but they still find delight to come back here and take palm wine. They still find delight to come back here and eat achu or eat ekwang or those other nice delicacies that we have here in Africa. They still find delight to come back and sit with their grandmother in the kitchen and eat local bitter leaf or other local delicacies prepared with the hands of their grandmothers. But it is time for us now to give solutions, give them ideas, and also to the governments, African governments. What can we do to ensure and facilitate the investment of the diaspora in Africa? Dr. Ndimancho.
Yes, I think the first thing I will talk about is I will collaborate with Sedat Senghor, who the famous Senegalese writer who talked about Africans reasserting their identity. Africans need to reassert their identity, and to reassert your identity, the first thing is that Africa must take Afrocentricism very seriously. This is one of the issues. You know, remember, look at your brother or your sister who travels to America today. Imagine that the next day he arrives America, he calls you and talks about you are Cameroon. It means that what? Somebody is trying to live a life that is not his. You go to a foreign country and you think that you will just want to be part, or you want to assume your origin from that country where you are. And that gives the reason why most people easily forget about their home countries. And Afrocentricism deals with love. Love is a topic that we can even talk, diagnose.
Dr. Ndimancho, imagine someone, he was talking here about writing a public exam. I don't want to talk only about Cameroon because we're an African program, but imagine someone writing an entrance examination into an institution that deals with maybe with journalists, or an institution that handles administrators. In Cameroon, I think the equivalent is going to be Enow, that trains administrators, and the person comes out last in that public examination, just for that particular person to go to America or in Europe, and at the end, the person emerges as the best student in Europe, and they tell the person that, oh, not only are you supposed to be a student here, but we see that you were even born to train administrators, but in your home country, you were last.
Mr. Boh,
how are you not going to say
no, Mr. Boh, I disagree with that argument. Let me tell you that as an educationist, those who learn in very harsh conditions, when they get out to real, they are the first.
Yes, yeah.
It is not because he was, downgraded in Cameroon or Africa. No, 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 no. Experience has shown that those of us who learn in very bad conditions in Africa, when we get to Europe or America, we are of the best.
So are you saying that in normal circumstances, each time results of a public examination are published, we should just reverse the list? The person who is last on the list just come up
that is not the case. I mean, it should be that we should know that there is no last person in Africa and that all of us can emerge. And that all of us can be the first. This is the lesson that we should send across, that all of us can be the first. You are only talking about those who have left Cameroon and gone to Europe. Do you know that even those who used to take first in your secondary school, in your class, today you are better than them? Maybe you are even taking last. And they look at you today, Amaya.
Unfortunately, I was not taking last.
You know people in your class who are last, and who today you look at them and you are Maya, and they are not going out of this country. But they are here in Cameroon, or they are here in Africa.
But of course, they emerge. To say that success in life doesn't only depend on academic qualification.
That is it.
What I say also, relationship, wisdom, and how to behave among people is also very important.
That is true, and that's what we are trying to say, that people should not only look at success as being educated. You can have a PhD. I mean, there is a difference between, intelligence and perhaps wisdom, using your wisdom or common sense to be able to do things in a society. We have had people who have not even gone to school, and they are changing the society. Let me tell you that most people who have not gone to school are employing PhD holders. Let me give an example of an icon, Samuel Eto'o. What level of education did he reach? But you find that though he has structures who are being managed by PhD holders, and he is controlling PhD holder doctors in those fields. We have to accept that. And I think that one of the things that should pull out Africans to develop Africa is that when you get out to Europe as a diaspora, one of the things you should do is that you should not immerse yourself into the enjoyment. I think you should be nostalgic. Nostalgic means that what? You should think back in appreciation. Look back in your village, in your town, in your country with appreciation, and you think that when you are enjoying what the amenities you are enjoying, you can transfer, you can make your own country a better place, and so that other people tomorrow you can be able to enjoy those amenities in Africa. The problem with us is that we feel that we keep on insulting and thinking that Africa will be developed by people else. Let me tell you, it is usually a very hard struggle. We have had countries, Japan was the same level of Cameroon in the 1960s. Where is Japan today? They struggle to reach where they are. And I think that we too can struggle to reach where other people are. The impression we get is that it is only people in public administration who can be able to do that. Let us assume that all of us have our own pound of flesh, and that we too can be able to help in the development of Africa.
Thank you, Dr. Ndimancho. I come to Professor Akumbom, Mark, and Tony. Someone has just sent me a message. Of course, as we are writing the diaspora, they are sending messages, and they are focusing on Cameroon. The person says the reason why this war it will be difficult to end is because the majority of southern Cameroonians over here believe that their only hope of returning to their place of birth is under a free southern Cameroon, because to them, their only government is keeping this dual nationality law to keep them out from their place of birth, which is a birthright and not a gift from anyone. To say, therefore, that if we want to encourage the diaspora to come back to Africa and invest, we need to be able to negotiate with them and ensure that we can grant them, I don't know whether pardon or give them the possibility to come back home. Because if you have someone out of the country who is causing war, and you decide to ban the person from coming back, the person is going to cause war for as many years as possible. What do you think we can do to ensure that there is a kind of dialogue between the African government and those in the diaspora to ensure that to ensure cessation of hostilities, for peace to reign, so that investments can come in?
That particular question seems to be twisting facts. The reason why I'm saying so is because not every diaspora who is out there is causing war.
No, I was talking based on the message that I read.
Yes, I'm trying to respond to the person. Not every diaspora from the southern Cameroons, former southern Cameroons, is causing war, nor sponsoring it. And for the fact that they have dual nationality also means that it will be difficult for them to actually be accepted as Cameroonians. And so what you should be asking us to do is, let us push for it, so that the government of Cameroon, in one way or the other, can actually be able to look into the issue of dual nationality, because it is of importance to work with our diaspora. And I will be sincere in saying that the problem of the war in the, say, the crisis in the northwest and southwest region is not the first in Africa. We had more war situations in other nations. I remember in Sudan, let's look at Sudan, was 21 years of thorough fighting. I'm sure things are getting better. If we go to a country like Rwanda, where there was a genocide where over 1 million persons were killed, Rwanda is emerging. But if you look at it, you also realize that the diaspora is playing a part in those countries. If you get to Ghana, Gambia, those are nations that have opened their arms to the diaspora. And when I'm saying the diaspora, I'm not only talking of those who left here and there and went. Let's look at it. When we look at...
While you get it to that point, Professor Mark, can we say that the invitations that were handed over to some of the diaspora for them to come back home, for example, for dialogue, some of them were people that were in lists of secessionists and none of that, but they were granted, do you think they were really granted in good faith? Are you sure that if they came...
I want to say that it is not, it will only be a fool to know that there's a warrant of arrest waiting for you, and then they give you an invitation for a meeting, then you respond to it. Because it was never in good faith. The intent was so that they come, and some of them should be bundled and locked up. So we can't use that as that should never have been a door for them to come in. So let us be sincere in that particular aspect. And I wanted to say that when I talk of diaspora, Mr. Boh, diaspora to me is not just those who left Cameroon and went out. Diaspora to me are those who left Africa as slaves, and their great-grandchildren are presently living in other nations right now. I am sure their ancestors still have a space here in Africa where they are supposed to occupy. And so our various nations in Africa should be able to stretch their hands over to them and say, the lands of your ancestors are still here waiting for you people. And so we should not close doors from them. And I'm sure if we work like that, if you go to Gambia today, those who are investing and turning Gambia around are diasporas that actually left the continent as slaves. Their ancestors left as slaves. They are coming into Africa to build it up. You go to Ghana, the doors have been opened to them. So the question is, why not do that all over Africa? You see, I am even talking and went that far. If we can accept that, then it means we'll be able to accept even if it's triple nationality. Because I don't think dual nationality should become a problem where an African who is making sure every day that he sends money to empower the economies, which we are here with, empowering that economy, we refuse them from coming to invest more. I think we need them, and I am asking the governments of various African nations to look into it and make sure that these particular individuals who left our countries went out for greener pastures, might be because they took a nationality from another nation. They should not be rejected from coming back home. They should not be rejected from investing. And also, this is a very important point. Our economies, which are tax economies, we are not refusing that economies should not levy taxes or custom duties on issues. But I am sure that taxes are not actually what will build a nation. If we want to empower our various nations, let us remove the taxes, reduce the tax rates that we are imposing on individuals who want to invest, and see how investments will come in from different areas.
Thank you.
And how most of these
Professor.
diasporas will do their best.
Thank you, Professor Mark. We are running short of time. And I think Lucas Nji and Emmanuel Ndiwum, they're going to take 1 minute. I trust them. They're going to take 1 minute and we'll conclude the show. To say that the person who wrote the message about the huge number of, he said a huge number of Southern Cameroonians. He never said all. So just to make that correction, Lucas Nji, I'm sure that you know that we have a problem of time. So I'm sure that you can give your conclusion in 1 minute. Also considering the fact that also to you guys came late, so I'm sure you can give your conclusion in 1 minute. The way forward.
Yeah, the first thing is that the entire African continent needs to go back and follow the philosophy Muammar Gaddafi had to develop Africa. That is the major key if we want to bring back the power of Africa. as long as you have the IMF and the World Bank deciding on the African continent, we are not going to have the kind of investors that will have to invest back at home, because even the African diaspora may not be able to conquer the multinationals that are there feeding the same policies that were put up by George Marshall in the second or the late half of 1944, or in the 1940s, pardon. So the second thing is that we must change our policies, the policies that centers around investment in Africa. Some countries are still very rigid, especially Cameroon. Cameroon has a good tax system, but the policy before you get to break that tax system serves as a deterrent to some people. And if that is duly put in place, the other thing is that we need to limit the importation of goods, because we promote a lot of things that we import. And we reject investors not because they cannot invest, but because of the fact that those who are feeding fats, and I want to end by saying that since we have more of bounty patriots and bounty nationalists who are proxies of some of these organizations, it becomes incumbent on them to not to make way for those who want to come and invest back at home.
Thank you.
So these three things,
maybe you land, because
yes. So these three things. One, we need to go back to look at Gaddafi's philosophy on Africa's development, because if you look into it, it has a lot that will cause Africa to grow. Remember, we have talked about his country. It did not depend on the IMF and the World Bank, and they were okay. Two, the state policies in most African countries, we need to reconsider it if we want to bring back these monies. We should not forget, I am of the opinion that my brothers in the West are simply taking back what was taken from us in the colonial days, where we had the guns and every other thing in our presence to control us. So if they are given a good room, they could even look for a better way to bring more and reinvest in Africa.
Thank you, Lucas Nji. Emmanuel Ndiwum, 1 minute, please.
Yes, Boh, I want to think that we have an organization in Africa called African Union. Even though we are celebrating it in a name, not in what it has delivered to Africa. I think it is time that the whole of Africa come together and look at what to do with our brothers and sisters in diaspora to come home.
Thank you.
If AU wants to make a name, let AU create a department or a function in that organization that should look towards this direction, to work in partnership with other African countries, especially African war-torn countries that has forced political refugees or political fugitives to be in the West. I think in partnership with AU, it will rekindle the existence of the AU.
Thank you so much, Ndiwum. Well, this last message, and we conclude. Coming in, good day to you all. Thank you for such an interesting topic. It is worth noting that those in authority do not have a plan for development and advancement of this country. We have lots of startups in Cameroon shutting down daily due to bad government policies and high taxes. If they cannot help those investing while in Cameroon to stand, how can those in the diaspora come home to invest? Coming in from Tala Gilo in Limbe. Dr. Ndimancho Michael, thank you so much for your renewed confidence, for always coming to 90 Minutes in Africa. Thank you so much, Ndiwum Emmanuel. Thank you, Professor Akumbom, Mark Anthony. And thank you, Lucas Nji, for coming to the show all the way from Boya. Thank you to the entire team, Christian Tebong, Franklin, Frank, Enow, Frank Ayuk. We were all in the machines for the production. The program was supervised by Kumlunet, coordinated by Kumlunet, and supervised by Brian Tambe. I am Boh Elvis, thanking you for watching. See you next week for another edition of 90 Minutes in Africa. God willing, bye-bye.